right. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I am Marcos Conan Negron, and beside me here, as always, is Ben the Jet Reds. Ben, we just knocked out the Warriors. How the hell are you feeling, dude?
Light the beam, baby!
Light
It
the
was a
beam!
killer game, man. Just another electric atmosphere in Golden One Center. And what better way to end the night on a dub?
It was awesome. Today was the day that we can say that the Warriors dynasty ended in
Yes.
Sacramento. The Kings ended up winning 118-94. Defense showed out. Guys were hitting their shots. Keegan and Keon exploded. De'Aaron and Domas did their thing. Like, it was just an all-around awesome team game. So before we get into specific players and things of that nature, I just wanted to, I'm too excited. So before we get into it, those audio listeners out there who want to check us out on YouTube, see our reaction, see how hyped we are right now, because guys, we are freaking hyped. So come check us out on YouTube, Behind the Back Podcast. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Love to chat with y'all, especially Warriors fans. If you guys want to say something, come right over.
Chime
we'll
in,
say something.
please.
Yeah. So let's talk about the game. So first quarter started off as good as we could have hoped for. It was the thing with the Warriors that we've been dealing with is like we're semi sloppy like half the time, right? Like if we're not making shots on like 5 or 6 possessions, I start to get worried because I'm like, this is the time where we can put these guys away. But we had a good first quarter, and then the Warriors kind of went on a run on their own and outscored us in the second quarter. How are you feeling? Because it is a tale of two halves for, this Kings team. It happens. Like, how are you feeling with the way we finished the second quarter and going into half? How did you feel?
Going into halftime, I was really nervous because there's been that trend all season long where the Kings start a game decently well, and then just kind of lose all rhythm. And we talk about not being able to slow the bleeding, not being able to get timely baskets. And I started to see these similar trends starting to pick up in this game in that second quarter, particularly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting nervous. I'm not going to lie. Like halftime happened. Steph almost hit that insane half court shot that would have cut it to a 1-point lead. And I was just like, the fact that almost went in doesn't make me feel very good. So
Yeah.
it was nerve-wracking for sure.
I think one thing that really stuck out to me in this game, especially in the second half, and it was mentioned a ton, was the reffing. Like the physicality of the game was so up and down. Like they were allowing straight up, arm bars on one possession, and then the next play, if they touch them, it's a foul. And I was so confused on like where it was going, and I was getting frustrated with the refs. And obviously the refs that were there were experienced. It wasn't Scott Foster. He was polluting the other game. But I was like, it definitely got to me. They were calling it both ways, but it was kind of hard to watch sometimes because there are opportunities for both teams to get to the line and change momentum. And I get it, in the playoffs, it's going to be tougher. So, at the end of the day, we were more physical, but that was something I noticed. I don't know how you felt about like the reffing in this game, or if that stuck out to you at all.
Yeah, I definitely noticed it, and I started getting worried, especially that was one of the things coming out of halftime, because I was like, I know the Warriors are going to get these calls, and I can't bank on the Kings getting these calls down the stretch, because we've seen traditionally for years now, the Kings just don't get the love calls, and the Warriors have earned those love calls, specifically the big three there. And so that was definitely another worry for me coming out of halftime, because I was like, they're going to start getting these calls, and the Kings, Sabonis is going to get mugged on the inside, and there's nothing going to happen. Like he'll get a second black eye, and he won't get another free throw.
Yeah, no, I noticed a black eye going in. I was like, oh gosh, it's like actually bad today. And he probably didn't get the foul call on that play that drew the black eye anyway. So it was, that's shout out to Domas for playing as physical as he did. And you're playing with the black eye. That's a bruise that's staying with you, and you're going to notice it every time. So I was so happy with the physicality that this team brought, especially on the defensive end. Steph was locked down. Clay didn't make a bucket. Draymond was the only one on that team hitting threes. Like it really it felt like an all-around great performance. We rebounded the ball well, but then when the third quarter was kind of touch and go on the rebound part of it, they were getting a few of those hustle plays. Budievsky was trying to make some noise, but we ended this game so strong. Let's shout out let's give our game balls. I'll pick a guy, you pick a guy. Um, if I had to give a guy who really, showed out this game, it's not who you think, because obviously I have my guy and he played great, but I want to give this one to Keegan Murray, because this
Mm,
man showed up and kind of had the performance that we need out of a potential third option moving forward. It almost like he stepped into the moment, because if we really think about it, this time last year when the Kings were playing the Warriors, Keegan Murray was just a catch and shoot guy. We were hoping he could put the ball on the floor and try to make a few buckets that way, but he wasn't going to be counted on to carry the load the way
right.
he did today. He set the tone, had the King like 14 of the Kings' first quarter points, and while the rest of them had 17 and weren't shooting well, he was maintaining, he was being aggressive, and again, he was locking up Steph early. Like, they were shuffling him, Keon De'Aaron, like everyone was working really hard to pressure Steph, but Keegan Murray did such a good job bothering him. And I was so impressed with his performance. And that's the kind of performances we're going to need out of a guy like Keegan moving forward. So he wins the game ball for me today. I was so happy to see it. That was a breakout moment for him.
And that's a great choice and great reasons why. I mean, just everything we saw from Keegan tonight was everything we want to see from him going forward. Like, tonight was the prime example of the kind of player that we want Keegan to be consistently. And obviously, second year, like, you can't even expect these kind of games from him in his third year. But it's a great, like, little notion to what he could very well develop into. And this is why Monty drafted Keegan. It's to be this wing player for the Kings. And just for him to show up in a game like this, when especially the way this Kings team started, it seemed a little off at first. Keegan started with the first almost like 11 points for us, I think.
Yeah.
Like, he had the hot start, and he's done that a few times this year where he's just gotten this team into a rhythm early on in the game. And that's been exactly what we need him to do. And it seems like we're seeing that trend from him a lot lately, where whatever we need any guy from this team to do, Keegan steps up into that role. Whether it's rebounding, whether it's, putting on points on the board, whether it's getting inside, like, he seems to provide that balance to this team. So just, yeah, phenomenal game from him. I think I agree with you on that. My guy in
Mm-hmm.
this game, Keon Ellis.
That's
Now,
right,
you
boy.
you asked me in this last one, in this last episode, who my top two player, or who my top player was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I can only pick one. And I told you, like, it's De'Aaron Fox. But then if I could pick two, it would be Keon. And the reason being for that defense. We hadn't seen the Keon versus Steph. And guess what? Keon picked Steph's pocket twice and picked Clay's pocket once. And that, beautiful. Like, he locked Steph down for the majority of this game. We are recording this very shortly after the game. I will be running numbers tomorrow to see exactly how well Keon specifically did against Steph in this game. I want to see how productive Steph was matched up against Keon, because it felt like every time that Keon was against him, Steph couldn't do anything. He was passing the ball. He was just trying to get it to the next available guy, because Keon was right there in every play. And something great too, Keon played the most minutes out of everybody on this team, and he earned those minutes tonight.
For sure.
Mike gave him those minutes because he earned every single minute of those. So just a phenomenal game from him. He gets my game ball.
For sure. And he shot so well tonight, and he was just all over the floor making plays, garnering the attention of Steve Van Gundy and whoever the other announcer is. I forget what the other announcer is. But they were praising him like crazy, he was deserving of it. And again, I wanted to say Keon. I mean, he had, you mentioned the 3 steals. I think he also had 2 blocks as well. Like, that dude was all over the place, making an impact. He was getting the ball to Domas. And man, this makes me feel so much better that the 2 guys that showed out in this game against the team that has been the monkey on our back was Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis. And now I want to give credit to our all-stars. De'Aaron Fox started the game off a little rough, and then once he started attacking the basket in the third quarter, things just kind of settled in for him. He was able to make his presence known. He made plenty of plays on the defensive end, which is awesome. So he stood out today and was still the instigator. And Domas, I mean, they were making him work for everything, and they were trying to game plan. They're like, hey, we're going to let you take these mid-range shots. And listen, they weren't going in, I was happy with every shot he took. I didn't mind it at all. None of it felt awkward. None of it felt like out of place to me. I was happy with his performance. And he just took a beating, and that was exactly what he had to do. He had to absorb the beating today and just out physical his team. And even when Kevon Looney was on the floor, there was no apparent mismatch that time that there was during the 7-game series. So overall, I was just happy with the way our core guys played. And HB made a couple clutch buckets, made a couple big plays down the stretch to extend the lead. Everyone played well. Davion, Trey, like this was a perfect. It was not perfect by any means. Like we had moments where we were up and down, but this was as good as a game as you could have imagined for with all the stakes against the Warriors.
Yes, 100%. And what it was perfect in, it was the perfect scenario for the Kings, meaning they dominated this game at the end of it. And this is something they needed to do going into a matchup against a team that they have yet to beat this season in every way, shape, and form. So, talk about getting some confidence into your game prior to going into a matchup that doesn't necessarily favor you at all. This is exactly the game that the Kings needed. So, I mean, yeah, just phenomenal game tonight. Let's talk about this next matchup a little bit. Just kind of getting ahead of it. We're going to discuss it a little bit more here coming up, but this Pelicans team is ready to go for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a winner go home scenario on Friday, and both teams got to bring their best. Now, one thing that we did see was in the Pelicans Lakers game tonight at the end, towards the end of the game, I think with about 3 minutes left, Zion put up his 40th point. Great night from him. But at the same time, he injured his leg. Now, they called it, I believe, a leg injury, as it's not necessarily specified at the moment. He's going to go in for some MRI scans tomorrow. So we'll learn a little bit more come Wednesday. But yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. I don't know how you feel about, if Zion's going to play or not. I mean, do you think that'll be a thing?
I think there's a great chance that he does, unless it's something that, unless the injury is severe enough that if he goes out and tries and plays, it's going to damage him for next season and you don't want to risk it. But Zion, I mean, people can question his competitiveness, but the Pelicans will not advance without him. Well, I could say that, I guess, because, who am I to talk? We're 0-5. But, like you said, this is the kind of game that we can take going into New Orleans. And New Orleans has been playing horribly on their home court. They've lost 7 out of their past 8 games now at home. So that home court advantage, when you watch those 2 games, the difference between their fans in that arena versus Golden One Center and our fans and how intense the environment was, I think that just prepared the Kings even more. And I would prepare for Zion. Like, if I'm the Kings, I'm operating as if Zion's playing no matter what they say. And obviously, when you're doing the film study and everything like that, it does change how what moves what packages you're looking at, what schemes you're going to run. But, you can't overlook anybody anymore, and you just got to assume they're going to be at full strength. So I wouldn't be surprised if Zion plays.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, especially in the fact of he's been banged up for a better part of his career. And it's one of those situations where you could tell how frustrated he was at the end of the game when he got injured tonight. And I feel like you've almost got to feel like he's got that sense of you've got to be kidding me kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is something similar to, I hate to make the comparison, but similar to like Derrick Rose, where it's like these injuries are piling up. It's hard to stack games. It's hard to, be included in a game that matters as much as this one does. And this is the most important game for the Pelicans this year, right? This is the one to get them to the playoffs. They had their most important tonight. Now they'll have their even more important on Friday. So to think about a situation or a scenario where Zion might not play, I just don't see it happening unless it's for reasons like you said, where it could hinder his presence later on in his career, later next season.
For sure. And so let me ask you this. The Pelicans, obviously, they, sold at the beginning, and they fought and clawed their way back against a Laker team that, advanced to the 7th seed. Do you think that there was a part of them, and obviously nobody wants to lose, but do you think there was a part of them that at the end of that game thought like, well, if we lose to LA, we haven't lost to Sac yet, so it wouldn't be the worst thing if we lost? and just put all our cards on the table for Zach to get into the playoffs.
I think fans probably thought that way, but I don't think the players did, because when you have it's not like the Pelicans were down 10 points with like 3 minutes left. Like that was still their ball game when Zion put up that 40th point. And so at that point it's like, nah, you got to just go out and try and close this game out, and then get your guy as much rest as possible prior to getting on the court for the playoffs round 1, right? So, you also got to think about too, like, who's the better matchup for them? Would it be Denver or would it be OKC? And I don't know how they stacked up against each team, but honestly, like in a situation like that, I feel like the players, they just got to go for the win, right? Like, you can't be thinking like, well, if we lose tonight, it's not the end of the world. We're 5-0 against this team. We'll put up another win against them. I don't think that's the case. I think that post game, they're probably thinking that. But this Kings team, this was a dominating win. This was a much needed win in a much needed fashion. And this is exactly what the Kings needed going into this matchup against the Pelicans. You're hitting the road, yeah, but you've got so much momentum because of what that fan base brought to you in Golden One Center, and also what you did to a Warriors team who eliminated you last year. Like, that's talk about get back.
Yeah. That was the best, I think. So if we circle back a little bit to the Warriors game, I think what was, like we mentioned yesterday, the most important part about this was, like, honestly, in my opinion, this is just how I feel as a fan, nothing else at this point kind of matters. Like, everything else matters, but I'm saying, like, every win we get from here on out is just going to be icing on the cake for me. Like, we battled and fought off our biggest demon that's been haunting and lurking over this team for the past 2 seasons. And I think, they told, Chris Haynes was talking before the game, and during the game they mentioned that he talked to Fox, and he said this last year stung, and it still is in our head. So I think mentally it was good for them to get over the hump against a team they struggled against, a team that was kind of their big brother for a while. And now it almost feels like we ended their dynasty. The looks on their face, we made them look old. Like, it was this, for me, we talked about, yesterday, you and I, whether this season was a success or not. And for me now, after this win that we just had, I mean, for me, it feels like we just did take the next step, even if it was just a play-in game. That's how I feel about it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, honestly. You talked about how much this Golden State, this matchup last year stung when they lost that game 7. This was a shadow. This was like one of those shadows that the Kings really needed to defeat, to advance farther in their, quest for a deep playoff run. Like, you were always going to have to beat this Warriors team, whether it was in a play-in or a playoff. And to be able to do it in the fashion you did, to be able to fend off your demons in the way you did tonight, that right there should speak loads to someone like Malik Monk, who is going to be considering more money versus something that feels a lot better. And I'll tell you one thing, tonight has a lot of weight, I guarantee you, on Malik Monk. If the Kings lost this game, it would probably be an easier decision for him to leave versus if they won this one.
I agree completely. And I know you and I talked about it before the game. Like, that's an underrated aspect of every win that the Kings get from here on out. Every win we get might be a better opportunity to secure Malik Monk for the future. Beating the Warriors without him and Kevin, I feel like, especially for Malik, it was like he knew that he's the kind of guy that seems like he just wants to be out there and wants to be a part of it. So the fact that we did this without him, number one, selfishly, it makes me feel better about a life without Malik Monk. If we were to lose him, the fact that we dominated the Warriors, this was the largest win against the Warriors that this organization has had since 2006. Like, that's insane. So now I still, if Malik decides to leave, I'm going to be hurt, and we will suffer a little bit because of it. But I feel really good after this win, and just like I feel way better about this team than how they finished the season. And that's what winning does. Winning does fix a lot of issues. It does, kind of, rose-colored glasses for a little bit, but this was the Kings at their best. This version of the Kings at their best. And if we bring this kind of energy to New Orleans, we will have a chance. Now it's just going to be a matter of, like today, will our shots fall in New Orleans? Will our defense carry? Will we be able to fluster them the way we were able to fluster, the big three tonight? So there's a lot to unpack, but I'm just so happy, dude. Like this is such a good game.
Yeah. So to add a little bit more to this game and also talking about the next game in the same way, our good buddy, Alex Liebert, he sent us an interesting thing after we recorded yesterday, but he sent us an interesting thing on Twitter by a Frankie Corticelli. I'm not sure who he is, but shout out him for pulling this stat.
He works. He's a beat writer for the Kings, so he operates for Sacramento radio and stuff like that. So when you go to Sacktown 1140, he's a regular guest on the show. He has information. He's like an insider on the Kings.
Perfect. So I'm a terrible Kings fan, obviously, since I didn't know that. So okay. Appreciate you for shouting that. So he tweeted out, the Kings have not won a winner-take-all postseason game since moving to Sacramento in 1985. They're 0-6. That was 0-4 in Game 7s and 0-2 in Game 5s. Now, in their franchise history, the Kings are 6-12, which is 33% in winner-take-all games. Tonight, that was changed. So hopefully we can add to that total going into New Orleans, because that is once again another scenario of winner take all. So yeah,
great stat.
Great stat, and honestly, great way to kind of put that behind us in a way. Put that, history behind us. So yeah.
Yeah. Overall takeaway from this game is, number one, I just feel like the dynasty's over, and it was so vindicating to have that happen in Sacramento, of all places, of all teams. God, dude, it feels so good. I'm on cloud nine, and I'm just ready for, again, anything that happens from here on out. I'm confident that we're gonna be able to take this momentum from this win alone into next season, into something that's bigger and better. And the fact that, here, I'm gonna take a second here. We gotta give props where props are due. And I just wanted to, when we look at, just how well we did, we held a top 10 offensive team to 94 points, a team with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson to 94 points. And they shot only 41%, 31 from the three. And it didn't look like, so it looks like on here you can see there's 49 rebounds for the Kings, there's 42 for the Warriors. I think they really did pick it up at the end. But I mean, our 15 offensive boards was just one of the keys we really touched on yesterday. Was we needed to make sure we brought the effort and the rebounding. And I was really happy to see that too. Was there anything on here that really sticks out to you?
Oh, just a small thing right there. Obviously, the free throws didn't win or lose this game by any stretch. We lost the free throw battle by, 8 free throws total, but we shot 93% from the free throw line. We were 14 of 15. And when we talk about how important these play-in, playoff games, finals games, any game postseason, like, you got to make your free throws. And what better way to start it off by only missing one? And it's been a story all season long for this Kings team where they just don't make free throws. And the one missed free throw was just an and one point that De'Aaron should have gotten. And it was as simple as that. Like, to make your free throws, like I said, it didn't win or lose this game, but it also gives you that confidence going in. Maybe now you can go into the paint a little bit more, and you can trust that whether you get fouled or not, like, you're going to have a chance at the bucket. And if you do get fouled, there might be 2 points there or an and one.
Agreed. And I also think if there's two other stats that stick out to me on this list, and a great mention on the free throws, because again, I did, with how well we were doing, you're right. It does get glossed over because it wasn't a close game. But if it was a close game, like, this was a great way to keep the momentum going. There weren't a lot of fouls in general, even if they got 8 more shots. I mean, there wasn't that many fouls. I mean, we each had 17, but the Kings, with only 8 turnovers versus the Warriors 16, and our 28 assists versus their 19. It was kind of a story of us, like, we were capitalizing on their turnovers and we were moving the ball around like crazy and finding guys. And that also is a testament to guys hitting their shots. Obviously, there's going to be games where, if you're hitting your shots, your team's going to get more assists. But I mean, for us to do that again against the Warriors is it's so nice. And gosh, I'm just looking at this and I'm just so happy. Like, seeing so many, guys above in double digits, our starting five just dominated. And Trey and Davion, and I mean, Alex Len, I mean, he didn't have any points, but he did have a good impact out there outside of the flagrant foul play that was, sucky. But
Yeah.
I mean, Trey and Davion stepped up off the bench, and we had this was our playoff roster. And it was great to see.
Exactly. We've talked about how the playoff roster in general, it boils down to about 7 to 8 guys typically. Like, they're going to get the abundance of minutes. And based on the guys that Mike played tonight, those 7, 8, 9 guys played phenomenal. And that's exactly what you need come April in the NBA. Like, you got to be bringing your best. When you're asking, you've had 82 games to figure out who's going to bring you the best minutes, who's going to bring you the most efficient minutes, what lineups, whatever it may be. Mike's figured that out. And we talked about how those lineups have switched up so much with injuries, with inconsistencies, like whatever the case may be. Well, tonight was consistent. And what better time to find consistency than right now? So, talk about consistency. We're going into New Orleans. We've got another winner go home situation. Got to bring that same consistency. You got to bring the same game that you played. I generally believe if the Kings play the game they did tonight against the Pelicans, they will win that game.
Absolutely. And they need to, like I said, we didn't play perfect, but we played as close to perfect as we could. And that is going to have to be the kind of game that we play. And it's going to be a matter of if our shots fall and if we're able to stifle them defensively. The difference between the Kings and the Warriors versus the Warriors and the Pelicans is Pelicans got size everywhere. And that will make things tough. Now, will CJ McCollum hit 9 threes like he did last time? That remains to be seen. And that's going to be, those X factors are going to matter, especially if for some reason Zion is out. Brandon Ingram looked tired today. And that's what happens when you bring a guy into playoff atmosphere after being out for a few weeks. And I think that's also interesting. That's something to consider if for some reason the Kings make a run and we're grooving and Malik Monk cuts back. How much are we going to be giving him if and when that happens, So that's something to consider, because we make it all the way to the second round. Having Malik Monk is awesome, but that's going to be something to think about, about how many minutes are we really going to give him, because getting back into game shape and game action is tough to do in the toughest of environments in the playoffs. So just a random 100%. Thought I had. So let's wrap up here, because, we're feeling good. There's not really much more to say off of this awesome win. Great, moment for Sacramento. And, what was, if you had any final thoughts on this game, what would it be for you?
Just way to bring it on your home court. Way to defend home court when it mattered most. Way to show up. Shout out to the fans. It seemed like from my TV screen, it seemed like an amazing atmosphere. So once again, Kings fans, you brought everything and more. You did your part, and we also get a free cookie because I can't remember who, but somebody missed 2 free throws in a row. So that was, all good and gravy there. It was a good win, really good win. Let's go get it Friday.
Yes, sir. So we'll get it Friday. For me, final thoughts is just, I'm so proud of this team. Like, this moment was not too big. These guys showed up, and I can see the future of this team, and I feel so much better because of it. And I feel way better now than I did 24 hours ago when we talked about it. So, I'm hyped for Friday. And if it doesn't go our way, then I'm not really tripping that hard. Like, it's gonna suck that our season's over, but we can now focus on taking these next steps. For me, everything that we get is just icing on the cake. I'm excited for it, dude. I'm happy we got to light the beam today. So that felt so good. So, with that being said, we're gonna cap this episode off here. This was episode 37 of the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. Hit us up on our social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, Facebook, all that fun jazz. By the way, we really appreciate the reception we received for the intro that Ben created for this podcast. Everyone that commented and gave their opinion, we really loved it. That's awesome. We're excited to keep using it moving forward. So I'm Marcos Conegron. Beside me here, as always, is
Benny the Jet Rats.
Guys, we love you so much. We got the win. We ended the Warriors dynasty today. Mark it, guys. We're so hyped. We'll talk to you on Friday night after the Pelicans game.
Yes, sir. Peace.